Hey, it's me from the future, however that works in editing. Yeah, we are rapidly approaching 1,000 subscribers. I wanted to say thank you to everyone that has supported me so far and is checking out my stuff. So, stick around for a special announcement at the end of the video after the credits. Okay? Talk to you soon. Hello and welcome to X Witness Awake. I'm your host, Jonathan. I hope you are doing well today. This is yet again another broadcast commentary and edit and all that good stuff for November, JW Broadcasting. I hope you enjoy what I've done here, but let's first run the introduction. So here we go. First off, we have Will Turner, not of the Pirates of the Caribbean fame.
What are you looking at? Back to work!
But of the governing body helper fame, who will be conducting most of this broadcasting episode. The first talk he has is regarding patience. Well, it's a long, drawn-out talk, so I, of course, have sped it up some to make it a little more tolerable, so it doesn't feel like an eternity. Though it still feels like an eternity to me. But he says patience quite a bit, so I've taken note of that. And I'll have a little bit of commentary. I'm going to save the commentary on that part of it until the end of that actual talk, so as not to interrupt the flow there. But, of course, you can skip ahead in the chapters if you'd like to just get to the commentary part. And what I've noted there. So, with that, let us begin.
Greetings, and welcome to JW Broadcasting. Here are a few highlights from this month's program. Samuele was torn between his career and the truth. How did he resolve this conflict? And what steps did he take to reach his spiritual goals? Perhaps you've been impatient with someone because they're not handling a situation the way you would. In a new dramatization, Neeta and Jade learn how to cultivate patience. In this episode of Our History in Motion, we'll see how convention strengthened unity and love among Jehovah's people. This is JW Broadcasting for November 2022. In our broadcast for this month, we're going to discuss the quality of patience. Think of how many situations we encounter that require patience. Waiting in rush hour traffic, dealing with a difficult coworker, raising a child, overcoming marital problems, coping with the illness of a loved one, or maybe coping with an illness of our own. Clearly, all of us face situations that require us to display a measure of patience each day. If we don't have patience, we can become frustrated, tired, and discouraged. But no matter what our circumstances are, all of us can develop this quality. How do we know? Because according to Galatians 5:22, patience is an aspect of the fruitage of God's Spirit, and with its help, we can make this quality an integral part of our personality. For this to happen, let's now answer two important questions. First, how can being patient help us to express our love for Jehovah? And second, how can being patient improve our relationship with others? Let's start with our first question. How can being patient help us to express our love for Jehovah? Let's consider what's stated in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. This chapter gives us a description of how love manifests itself. Please follow along as I read verse 4. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous. It does not brag, does not get puffed up. Of all the many qualities that stem from love, did you know which one is listed first? Patience. It is an integral aspect of love. We need both love and patience in order to be successful and ensure we're on the right course, which includes pleasing Jehovah. If we think of situations where a lack of patience was a factor, we can usually identify where a lack of love was evident. Take, for example, God's chosen people, the nation of Israel. In Psalm 106, written many years after Israel's deliverance from Egypt, the psalmist indicates that they continued acting with a similar disposition. Despite that, Jehovah extended patience to them for many years. Please follow along as I read Psalm 106, verses 7 and 8. Our forefathers in Egypt did not appreciate your wonderful works. They did not remember your abundant loyal love, but they rebelled at the sea, by the Red Sea. But he saved them for the sake of his name, to make his mightiness known. And what was the result? Let's read verse 13. But they quickly forgot what he did. They did not wait for his counsel. How sad. The people did not wait. They were not patient. And that highlights that they did not appreciate Jehovah's patience and loyal love. The love for God should have caused them to think about the consequences of their actions. They should have remembered how Jehovah cared and provided for them. That should have moved them to be patient and wait on Jehovah's direction. But time and again, their actions showed that they really didn't love Jehovah as they should have. And it cost them. They eventually tested Jehovah's patience to the limit, and as a nation, lost his favor. What can you and I learn from their example? Never would we want to become independent of Jehovah, trusting in our own thinking, and not patiently waiting for Jehovah's counsel to direct the decisions we make. Think about how well we've been guided recently regarding the pandemic, natural disasters, and the organizing of our ministry. Even if we didn't fully understand or even fully agree with all the decisions, our love for God helped us to take the time to think about Jehovah's care for us and trust him. By doing so, we learned that if we're patient and submit to Jehovah's direction, we won't go off course and will benefit ourselves and others. And in doing so, we ultimately express our love for Jehovah. Let's now answer the second question. How can being patient improve our relationship with others? If we go back to 1 Corinthians 13:4, the study note states, patience is a quality that Jehovah and Jesus constantly show in their dealings with humans. As imitators of Jesus and Jehovah, Christians are to show patience to others. So if Jehovah and Jesus are patient with us, it would follow that we imitate their example and be patient with others. Let's start with the greatest example, Jehovah. Think about the patience he's shown in waiting to bring an end to this system. Jehovah has a fixed day and hour when that will take place, and he's patiently waiting until that arrives. He's bound himself to his own timetable. Now, rest assured, Jehovah is well aware of how we feel as his servants. He knows that we wish the end of this system to come as soon as possible, and that we long to see the fulfillment of all his promises, and he longs to fulfill them. But he will not become impatient and act before his appointed time. Why should we appreciate Jehovah's patience in that regard? Please follow along as I read 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. Furthermore, consider the patience of our Lord as salvation, just as our beloved brother Paul also wrote you according to the wisdom given him. Isn't that a powerful point? Jehovah's patience is the means for our salvation. Think about the number of people who are learning the truth every year. Even during the pandemic, when we weren't able to engage in our typical house-to-house witnessing, tens of thousands of individuals still got baptized worldwide. Perhaps some of those included your Bible students, family members, close friends, or maybe even you yourself. And think about this. If Jehovah had impatiently brought the end of this system 5, 10, or 20 years ago, would you have learned the truth? So we appreciate that Jehovah is still patiently waiting for his day to arrive and has allowed so many to attain to repentance and develop a relationship with him. How should this affect our relationship with others? Perhaps it can help us to be more patient with a progressive Bible student who still may be struggling with a problem. Or maybe it's still difficult for some of our relatives to see us as one of Jehovah's Witnesses and to adjust to our beliefs and lifestyle. But in imitation of Jehovah's patience, we won't give up on them. And of course, reflecting on Jehovah's patience should move us to continue to have a full share in the ministry, earnestly looking for those who are rightly disposed for everlasting life and helping them to love Jehovah and serve him. Then they too can benefit from Jehovah's patience just as we have. We can also learn from the example of Jesus. He demonstrated tremendous patience when his disciples were arguing among themselves as to who was the greatest. This apparently happened on a number of occasions. And no doubt it saddened Jesus to hear this. But Jesus was patient with them. He showed empathy for them. He knew how much the culture and the environment in which they had been raised affected their thinking and attitude. That knowledge caused him to react kindly. Note one beautiful example. Please read with me Mark chapter 9. Mark chapter 9, verse 33 and 35. And they came into Capernaum. Now, when he was inside the house, he put the question to them, "What were you arguing about on the road?" Well, we know the answer. They had been arguing about who among them was the greater. Look at verse 35. So he sat down and called the 12 and said to them, "If anyone wants to be first, he must be last of all and minister of all." Did you know what Jesus did? He patiently waited for the right time to correct them kindly. He didn't make a scene on the road. Verse 33, he waited until he was inside the house. Verse 35, sitting down. He calmed the situation. He didn't push them. Instead, he led them patiently by instruction and by example. What a great example in avoiding becoming provoked. And instead of acting immediately, waiting for the right time to address matters, even when our patience is tested. What else can we take away from Jesus' example of patience? If you're a parent, can you imitate the way that Jesus dealt with his apostles? It may be frustrating if your children don't respond immediately to your counsel, or if they're slow in correcting their shortcomings. Or perhaps you're an elder, and someone you're trying to help may be slow when responding to Bible-based counsel. But remember Jesus' example. He never gave up on his apostles. He kept looking for the good, expressing confidence in them, and patiently repeated lessons that they needed so that they could draw closer to Jehovah. If we do the same, not giving up, our patience may eventually be rewarded as well. So to review, how can being patient help us to express our love for Jehovah? It stops us from running ahead of Jehovah, demonstrating our loyal love for him. Waiting patiently for Jehovah's direction and guidance ensures that our course is pleasing to him. And second, how can being patient improve our relationship with others? It helps us to avoid acting rashly and to look for the good in others and express confidence in them. Hopefully this discussion will help us appreciate the benefit of displaying patience in our lives. With the increasing pressures of these last days, we'll need to display patience more than ever before. Imitating the patience of Jehovah and Jesus will help us keep the right attitude. We won't become overly discouraged or overwhelmed by the present wickedness in this system, or even be impatient about that. Instead, we'll stay on the right course, keeping busy, working to develop a closer relationship with Jehovah, and keeping active in our ministry, helping others to learn about Jehovah and benefit from his patience. May all of us keep working to make the quality of patience a dominant part of our personality. As we do, we will demonstrate how much we value and appreciate this wonderful quality and bring all praise and honor to Jehovah.
I told you said patience a lot. Okay, so this is one of those parts where, in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with it. When you think about being patient, it's a good thing to be as a human being. You don't want to be impatient and, jump the gun. You don't want to fly off the handle because you got upset real quick. It's something that, people work on. Even myself, I have to work on being patient and having that short fuse that I have sometimes. So that's fine. But there's always something in these talks that can be debunked or shot down or something. Just there's a piece in there that they're trying to teach Jehovah's Witnesses that when you think about it, it's actually harmful. So they're saying you should be patient. He's saying you should be patient and on rely on Jehovah. And it makes me think about putting things in Jehovah's hands. It makes me think about waiting on Jehovah, being patient that way. There are plenty of people who are being hurt in the organization because the elders, because the family members are leaving it in Jehovah's hands when it comes to children being abused, children being shunned. It's harmful. That's not something that you should be patient about. That's something you should react to right away. So if someone is in that position, please don't hesitate to speak to the authorities. The organization is going to maintain that, if it's the law of the land that we must report this sort of thing, then we'll do it. But otherwise, they just keep it hush-hush because they don't want them to look bad when they're saying we don't want Jehovah's name to be dragged through the mud. We don't want the organization to look bad. People are doing this, not the organization. People are harming, members are harming other members. But the organization is the one that is saying, let's just put that away. That's where the real issue lies, is the responsibility to do something. So don't be patient about that. Get on that. If somebody's being harmed, talk to the police and do something about it. And also, Will Turner goes on to talk about being patient when it comes to Jehovah's appointed time for the end of the system to happen, and how happy we are that Jehovah was patient and didn't bring about the destruction of the world 10 years ago or 20 years ago, because were you in the truth at that time? A lot of people have been hurt in that time frame. A lot of people have wasted a good portion of their life in that time frame when God is supposedly being patient, and we're supposed to be patient on when the end is supposed to come. It's a lot of wasted time. So I don't think of it as a good thing. I remember being, a young person and just fresh out of high school, and what am I going to do with my life? And am I going to go to school? No, I should probably do more field service. I did a little bit more, and I never ended up going to school, and here we are, and I'm pushing 50, and the end hasn't come. So I can only be so patient. And there's a lot of people who can only be so patient because life is fleeting. And if you're just going to sit there and wait for the end to come, you're going to be sadly disappointed. That hourglass, there's more on the bottom than there is on the top after a while. You need to live your life. You need to enjoy life and make it worthwhile with the time that you have on this planet to, make your mark and do your bucket list, whatever. Friendships, relationships, that sort of thing. Family, experiences. Those are the things that matter. And just sitting back and keeping busy, as they say, waiting for the end to come, that's just accepting things as they are and watching the clock run out on your life. If you as a Jehovah's Witness truly believe that this is God's organization and this is the right thing, you know what? More power to you. If that's the way you choose as an adult to live your life, then that's fine. That's your prerogative, and no one should stop you from doing what you believe if you're not hurting somebody. If you fully informed yourself and you make that decision based on what you know, that's your decision. If you're a little kid, you don't have that luxury. You gotta go along with what the parents have to say, right? And that's wrong. You can't make that decision when you're young like that. Not really. You're expected to make that decision when you reach a certain age, but it isn't all that old. And then you don't really have any real power as a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, or something like that. What are you going to do? I don't want to. Well, in my house, you have to, because we serve Jehovah. So what power do you really have? You just kind of go, okay, and you go along with it. And then later in life, you come to realize that it wasn't the right decision for you. But you were powerless to do anything about it at the time because you were, a child. So I think I've lost the plot here on this part. But don't just sit back and wait and be patient for the end to come and let your life just blow away in the wind.
To give Jehovah their best, some of our brothers give up lucrative and prestigious careers. Making this decision may take time and patience, as we'll see in our first video.
Now, this part is talking about somebody who was an athlete and how he felt like he wasn't doing enough, and he basically gave up basketball to do more for Jehovah. But I want you to kind of take note of the sentiment and the language used here, because it feels like you could just slightly alter it, and it's someone weighing whether they should be in the truth instead of whether they should do more for the truth. So just keep an eye on that, and I'll comment at the end.
I played in the Series A, which is the top league in Italy. I was on the national youth team, and I went all the way up to the men's national team. Just the fact that you are good at your job is gratifying. And then there is also the financial aspect.
My mom and dad were Jehovah's Witnesses, and so was my older brother. At a certain point, I felt conflicted.
Especially when I decided to draw closer to the truth. It was no longer a family thing.
In time, something started to develop in me.
A fire, a small fire. Gradually, I came to the point of dedication to Jehovah, although I still played. But maybe...
Not maybe, definitely, I wasn't giving Jehovah my best, my energy.
I was fitting my spiritual life around my work life, and not the other way around. I excused myself saying, I'm just working, it's a profession. Yes, it's time-consuming, but of short duration because athletes retire earlier.
The closer I drew to Jehovah, the stronger my inner conflicts became.
The circuit overseer who served the area I was associated with helped me. I had known him since I was a child. When we met again, the first thing he asked me was,
Are you happy with what you are doing?
Seems like a simple question, right? But this question went deeper. I'm very grateful to him and his wife for all the time they devoted to me.
They were very busy, but even on their day off or in the evenings after long days of activity, they spent time with me.
In time, I moved to different cities and changed to various teams. So he entrusted me, so to speak, to 2 other families.
They poured themselves out for me, sacrificing their time, without ever making me feel bad for what I did.
With regards to decisions about basketball, they never told me what to do. I had to reach that decision on my own, whether I should continue playing or not. It was their way of life that corrected me, so to speak. Their example, their lifestyle, their priorities they set. And the joy they had in doing what they did helped me. It was more their example than their words. It helped me understand what I really wanted from my life. I started in 1995 and continued until April 2008, when I played my last match. I, let's say, made a cut and quit playing basketball. I'm glad I made it.
Sometimes I say to myself, if only you had done it earlier, if only you had had the courage earlier.
I had the privilege of serving as a regular pioneer for 2.5 years. I was asked if I would like to apply for Bethel service. And to my surprise, I was invited to the Italy branch and served there for 5 years. A few months after leaving Bethel, I had the privilege of attending the School for Kingdom Evangelizers. It was wonderful. This sport, basketball, it's great, it's thrilling, it's exciting, but it's not the source of true happiness.
It's true, the world can give you a measure of satisfaction, but everything comes at a cost.
But it took me a long time to understand this. Knowing that I'm giving Jehovah my best has made me happy. Yes, there is a team, a large one, and we all play for Jehovah. And its goal is beautiful, it's exciting, and its success is sure.
Samuele said he'd wished he had given up basketball earlier to pursue spiritual goals. From that, we learned that decisions to spend time on personal interest take away from time we should give to Jehovah. The sooner we appreciate Jehovah's patience, the sooner we enjoy the blessings which make us truly rich. We're happy that Jehovah exercised patience with Brother Podesta and helped him to regain his balance. If you're facing a career decision, be assured that when we focus first on serving Jehovah and teaching others his word, we're happier. Samuele was influenced by the patience and good example of loving brothers.
Okay, so I'm sure you could probably see what I was talking about, how the example of this brother who was a basketball player feels like a story of someone who's trying to decide what to do with their life, what to, make their focus, whether they should do more or less. And I hope it was obvious in changing the sound a little bit of what parts I wanted to highlight. Some people have to make a big decision as to what they're going to do. They, are born in Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's what they know, and they learned it as a kid, and they got baptized, and then at a certain point, they're like, I don't know about this. And they have to make a decision of what they're going to do, whether they're just going to float and just maintain what they're doing, or if they're going to get out and live life. So in this case, this person was a talented basketball player. That's something I never was. So I don't know what that life's like, but I definitely am not a baller. I never was. This person, had to make a decision about what he wanted to do, because he realized that he only had so much time, and to put so much effort into playing basketball was taking away from his service to Jehovah and so on. And like I mentioned earlier, life's short, so you've only got so much time, you've only got so much energy that you can put into things. So you really have to make that decision about what you want to do, what's more important to you. So for some people, they're going to continue to, slave away for the organization, and others are going to go, not for me, and get out and live life. So, but as I highlighted there are people who you can talk to that can give you advice, be support for you, because when you get out, of course, you lose all support, and it's important to have people that understand and are willing to just listen, honestly. I talk to plenty of people, and I don't necessarily have the best advice. I don't know how to fix all the problems. Although I find myself wanting to fix all the problems, but that's just a thing with me. But sometimes it's just as simple as listening and showing that you care. Another thing that I notice at the end of the comments from William Turner, he, again, like they like to do in these broadcasts, is tell you how you feel. So if you do this and you do that, you will be happy. You don't know that. You don't know that that's going to make people happy. Because I'll tell you something. If doing those things was always going to make you happy, no matter what, then what are all these people who have left the organization doing? Because they should have just been happy and stuck to it. Nope. They weren't happy. And I know for a fact a lot of them tried. A lot of them really doubled down on trying to immerse themselves in study and prayer and service and meetings and all that stuff. And if you ask them, they weren't happy. Something was off. They knew it was wrong. They were not happy. So once again, culty stuff, trying to tell you how you feel. Only you know how you feel. Act accordingly. That's what I got out of this part. Yeah, so let's carry on to the next bit, which is going to be a Jade and Neeta bit. Here we go.
When we see how others are handling situations, we may not be as patient as we'd like to be. That's what happens to Neeta and Jade in the following dramatization. How do they learn to be more patient with each other?
is actually a pretty good little reggae kind of jam. So, if somebody at Bethel wrote this, kudos.
You're late. I said you're late.
Sorry.
Remember to always make the worldly people miserable. Oh, here comes ex-boyfriend Neeta and Jade.
Yeah, just a few weeks.
You look great.
What can I get you?
I tried texting, you know, after you ended it.
Chai latte. That was your favourite.
Jade, you were my favourite.
I've heard a lot of people say that this "You're My Favorite" or "We're My Favorite" is kind of corny. But funny enough, my wife and I, we pretty often say "You're my favorite" to each other. So, it could work.
Ollie, you know why I had to...
I know. But I want to study your religion. Yeah, that's what I texted.
Probably not.
Well, I got a new phone and I didn't see them.
Okay, but how about I leave you my number and we can meet up? Come on.
And that's when you walked away. Tell me you walked away.
I was on cash register, so
Give me his
no.
number.
What? No. Jade?
Bloody hell.
He said he wants to study.
Yeah, he wants to study you.
We can't read hearts.
She does have a point there.
I think I can read yours.
He was sweet. And if he wants to know the truth...
Don't roll your eyes at me.
I can't even believe this. What does it say?
Rude.
It says low battery.
No.
Oh, you think you're funny now?
2 Corinthians 6:14.
Do not become unevenly yoked with unbelievers. There was no yoking. I haven't yoked.
But this opens the door to the yoke.
I'm not stupid. You act like I don't know this.
No, you act like you don't know this.
I wonder if this is their first fight.
That's a lot of backstory.
How useless is the roommate if she has to confide in the emo Bible study student?
You asked what happened.
I thought you sum it up in a word or something.
Anyway, now you know.
Can you imagine if they say that this Bible student progresses to baptism, how completely miserable she would be at the door?
So, are you going to call him then?
I don't think so.
Why not?
Because I don't think it's religion that he's interested in.
I could have told you that.
I made you a cup.
Thanks. You're amazing.
Listen, I'm sorry.
Jinx, you owe me a soda.
I know I came on strong.
No, you were right.
But I could have been more patient. I reacted too quickly. I know you know what the right thing to do is. I should have given you more time to talk it out.
I called Brother Davies and gave him the background and said if he's really interested, he'll have a study. Then I deleted Ollie's number.
I knew it. I knew you'd do the right thing.
Well, sometimes. But I should have been more patient. And I should have heard you out. It's just not what I wanted to hear in the moment.
So we're good?
Always.
I love you. Oh, I mean, we're
I
good,
won't
yes.
apologising till I finish this coffee. It's too painful. It's so nice.
It's Keisha's.
She's so good.
Haven't we enjoyed the journey of Neeta and Jade? From when they first appeared in our convention videos up to these latest episodes, they've encountered situations we can all relate to.
Yes, these two sisters are a fine example. So good, so relatable. It's almost like they weren't actually real and things were just written to go a certain way to get a certain message across. Wow.
Jade, progressing from Bible student to Bible teacher, learning to reject falsehoods about Jehovah's people.
Sorry, what you mean to say is learning to put your head in the sand and not learn anything about what the actual facts are.
And refining qualities like patience. Neeta has grown as a disciple maker and as a caring spiritual sister.
And who could forget the fine example of the roommate? What's-her-face? She's doing stuff too.
The encouraging lesson for us? Keep growing as a spiritual person. Putting on the new personality isn't easy. It can seem insurmountable for those in the grip of an addiction. We'll see this in our next video. What helps Takei break free from compulsive gambling?
Okay, so I decided to actually skip this part because it talks about somebody who deals with gambling, with a gambling problem. And it just basically is, he found Jehovah and it fixed his life for him. What they forget to really mention is that it doesn't have to be Jehovah's organization for that sort of thing to happen. There are people of different denominations worldwide that find God and are able to overcome a vice like that. Or even atheists who go to Gamblers Anonymous or something and are able to overcome that as well. So it isn't just Jehovah's organization that has the secret there. Yeah, so that's basically the gist of that part. And the guy talks extra slow. And this is already getting to be a rather long video, so I'm just going to trim that part out.
How encouraging. If you're fighting an addiction, don't give up. Pour your heart out to Jehovah and ask for his help. Don't be discouraged if you suffer setbacks. Jehovah will be patient with you, as he was with Takei. Did you notice that our brother's addiction began subtly? If only he had detected the early warning signs. How can we remain alert and safeguard our heart? Let's find out in this Bethel morning worship with Brother David Splain, a member of the governing body.
Solomon had 3 horrible half-brothers: Amnon, Adonijah, and Absalom. They were a lot older than he was, but Solomon didn't try to imitate them, and he didn't allow himself to be stumbled by their bad conduct, as if to say, well, if that's the kind of people they have around here, I want nothing to do with Jehovah's Witnesses. No, Solomon...
This won't be the first time that David Splain tries to insert Jehovah's Witnesses into a Bible narrative like they've always existed. They came about, in the 1900s. not in Bible times.
Followed his own path. He developed a strong personal relationship with Jehovah God. And remember what the Bible says about Solomon in the beginning? Jehovah loved him. Isn't that nice? Wouldn't you love it if that were said about you? I would. Jehovah loved Solomon. And Jehovah blessed Solomon in many ways. For example, while Solomon was faithful, Israel was at peace. In fact, Solomon said, Jehovah my God has given me rest all around. There is no one opposing me, and and nothing bad is happening. So it was only after Solomon became unfaithful that resistors were raised up in Israel. Not only was Israel at peace when Solomon was at peace with God, but Israel was rich. Solomon had no financial problems. The Bible says that the silver was as common as the stones. But when Solomon started drawing away from Jehovah, Jehovah withdrew his blessing. And so that prosperity didn't last, even during Solomon's reign.
Is it just me, or does this feel like they're sticking their toes into the pool of prosperity gospel, where if you serve God, and, well, that means the organization too, and sending them money, you'll prosper. But if you don't, well, things are going to go bad for you.
Site tells us there was a drain on Israel's economy. Solomon was still spending money as if it were going out of style, but he didn't have the income that he once had. And so even materially, Israel suffered, and Rehoboam did not inherit the wealth from Solomon that Solomon had had at the peak of his reign. Now, as our comment points out, for much of his reign, Solomon did a lot of good things. But is it possible that right from the beginning, as involved as Solomon was in theocratic projects, there was a little red flag that something wasn't quite right? It's possible. Now, as our comment points out, when Solomon became king, he was a young man, but he was a young married man. In fact, when he became king, Solomon had probably been married for a couple of years already. He had a little boy. He was a daddy. He had a little boy, 1 year old, Rehoboam. But who was his wife? Probably his first wife. She was an Ammonitess. Ammonitess. What do we remember about Ammonitess? Oh, yes, Deuteronomy chapter 23 and verse 3. Now remember, when Solomon gets married, King David is still alive. David is probably at the wedding. Now here's what Deuteronomy 23:3 says. No Ammonite or Moabite may come into the congregation of Jehovah. Even to the 10th generation, none of their descendants may ever come into the congregation of Jehovah. What part of never did Solomon not understand? And so, could that mean that even before he became king, Solomon had a casual view of Jehovah's laws on marriage? It's possible. Well, why do we say possible? Well, without being dogmatic, Insight says that there may have been exceptions for foreign women like Ruth, the Moabitess. But Insight also says that Solomon's Ammonite wife possibly contributed to his apostasy. In any event, why was the first wife a foreign woman and an Ammonitess to boot?
Now, if Solomon had married a nice Jewish girl?
Just one? And rejoiced with the wife of his youth? Don't you think that the history of Israel would have been much different? I think it would have been. But let's take a moment to think about the women Solomon did marry. Pagan women. Now, you may have relatives who are not in the truth. You love your relatives and you go visit from time to time. But how long is it before you run out of things to talk about?
Because when you go to dinner, there's only one thing to talk about, the governing body and the weather.
We just don't have the most important thing in common, the truth. So we have to ask, why was Solomon so comfortable with these pagan women? What did he talk about? Well, you can be sure he wasn't studying the Watchtower with them.
Well, you're right there, because the Watchtower is some propaganda of a publishing company in modern times, not at the time of Solomon. Stop trying to insert yourself into history.
But what was he doing? What was the attraction to these foreign women? Was it their humility, their modest dress, their chaste conduct, their quiet and mild spirit? Or was it mainly the physical? Let's be blunt. Solomon was attracted to the wrong kind of woman, and there may have been early warning signs. Speaking of red flags, when Solomon began marrying many women, did a prophet or a priest ever approach him and give him some counsel? Did they ever read Deuteronomy 17:17, which applied directly to the king? Deuteronomy 17:17. It says about the king, neither should he take many wives for himself, so that his heart may not go astray. Well, if he did receive that counsel, he certainly didn't apply it. And if he didn't receive that counsel, we wonder why not. Well, what's the application?
Today we may be very busy in Jehovah's organization, but we have to be alert to any red flags that despite outward appearances, all is not well with us.
A single brother is a regular publisher. He's a regular meeting attender. But on his nights off, he likes to go to nightclubs, and he's comfortable in that atmosphere. He isn't shy about striking up conversations with worldly people, and he loves to dance. Well, there are no sisters there, so he dances with worldly women. What's the attraction? He's busy in the congregation, but there's something there that isn't quite right. A young pioneer brother loves to flirt. Several young sisters think he's interested only in them. The attention makes him feel special. A ministerial servant spends a lot of time talking to a married woman. When he's asked about it, he justifies it and says, "We're just friends. We're just talking." Famous last words. A fine young sister is offended when an older sister approaches her and points out that her skirts and jeans are too tight, too revealing. Well, all these are red flags. We need to examine ourselves from time to time to see whether, no matter how many privileges we have, something isn't quite right. When it comes to choosing a mate, Solomon's example can be instructive to us. What qualities do we value in a marriage mate? Spiritual qualities? Or is it mainly the physical, and we hope that the spiritual will catch up later? A young sister is getting acquainted with a young brother. He's really good looking, has a great personality, gets along with everybody. But how's he doing spiritually? Does he have a good schedule for theocratic activities, and does he stick to it? For example, if you mention an article in a recent magazine, does he often say, "I must have missed that one"? If that's what happens, it's a bad sign. Does he make spiritual activities a priority in his life? If he doesn't do that while he's single, what makes you think that he's going to do it after you get married? Will you change him, or will he change you? As our comment reminds us, Solomon enjoyed many privileges, but he apparently felt that some of God's laws just didn't apply to him. Why not?
It sounds like you're talking about hypocrisy when something applies to one group and doesn't apply to another. So that reminds me, Bethelites have to take a vow of poverty, don't they? Yeah. And you guys are supposed to be taking a vow of poverty as well, but you've been seen wearing, fancy watches and driving nice cars, and you tend to look like maybe you're actually doing pretty good. So is that hypocrisy?
Well, we don't know. Could it be what Solomon said in Ecclesiastes? The king does whatever he wants? Maybe so. Solomon multiplied horses and acquired many wives for himself. So what's the lesson for us? No matter how long we've been in the truth, no matter how many privileges we have, no matter how much Jehovah has used us, we can't afford to let down our guard. We must guard our heart.
And we mustn't ignore any red flags that might indicate that all is not well.
Theocratic conventions are a spiritual highlight of every year. They play an important role in fostering unity and love among Jehovah's people. In this episode of Our History in Motion, let's explore how conventions have become an essential part of modern-day worship.
Good morning, brothers and sisters. How delightful it is to be gathered together for this spiritual occasion.
Jehovah's Witnesses love gathering at conventions to learn, worship, and sing together.
Oh, do me a favor. Take an anonymous poll of all Jehovah's Witnesses and see what percentage actually really love going to these district conventions where they have to drive for long periods of time, take time off of work. It costs them a lot of money. It's tiring. They got to drag their kids out to all this. And yeah, I bet you it's not all Jehovah's Witnesses love
But
it.
large conventions like these, with tens of thousands meeting together, weren't always a part of our modern day worship. How did they get started? Let's find out in this episode of Our History in Motion. The very first large assembly of Jehovah's people was actually held thousands of years ago, when the Israelites gathered with Moses at Mount Sinai for spiritual instruction.
Well, at least he didn't say Jehovah's Witnesses all that time ago, but you know what he was implying.
After that, the Israelites attended 3 festivals each year. And just like today's conventions, those gatherings brought people together from different tribes to praise him as one big family. In modern times, our first conventions were held in the late 1880s, but they weren't exactly what we'd think of as conventions today. With just a few hundred in attendance, they were really just big meetings that brought the Bible students together to commemorate the Lord's evening meal. And they were all held in Allegheny, Pennsylvania, USA. But that changed in 1893 with the opening of the Chicago World's Fair. The fair drew millions of people, and with the railroads offering discounted rates to Chicago, the Bible students saw it as a perfect opportunity to invite the brothers and sisters for a 5-day convention. About 360 attended, a small crowd by today's standards, but early conventions like this one helped the Bible students see just how upbuilding it was to meet with fellow believers from other areas. Eventually, conventions became an annual event. Some were held outdoors or in a tent, like the 1908 convention at Put-in Bay, a summer resort on Lake Erie, Ohio. This convention was 10 days long, and it was the largest up to that time, with an estimated 3,500 or more in attendance. It was a chance for brothers and sisters, young and old, to be spiritually refreshed, spend time together, laugh together, eat together, and build true bonds of friendship and love. The world then suffered the devastating effects of World War I and the deadly 1918 influenza pandemic that had taken an estimated 50 million lives. But that did not stop God's people. Our bonds of love became even more evident in 1919 at Cedar Point, Ohio. This was the first major convention held after Brother Rutherford and his associates had been released from prison. Thrilled to finally gather together safely, the Bible students just kept coming and coming until the entire program had to be moved outdoors, with some 7,000 in attendance. Just 3 years later, in 1922, Cedar Point was the location of an even more exciting convention, with an average daily attendance of about 10,000. It energized God's people to go on preaching with renewed vigor. Many conventions in the years that followed helped unite God's people in even more powerful ways, like the unforgettable one held in Columbus, Ohio in 1931. Imagine stepping into the Coliseum at the fairgrounds. There are 15,000 in attendance and the place is packed. Your program has 2 large letters printed on the front, JW. For the first 2 days of the convention, everyone's trying to guess what those letters mean. Just watch? Just wait? Finally, Brother Rutherford steps on stage. Near the end of his talk, he presents a resolution that climaxes with the words, "We desire to be known as and called by the name to wit, Jehovah's Witnesses."
So it begins.
In the 1940s, World War II had left many countries devastated and divided. But Jehovah's Witnesses were growing in number and in unity. In 1946, they gathered in Cleveland, Ohio for the Glad Nations Theocratic Assembly, and the name couldn't have been more appropriate. It was a true international convention with 55,000 delegates from 33 different nations. Some even camped in tents and trailers to be there. Tent cities were a common sight during big conventions of this era. With our spiritual family continuing to grow, conventions during the 1950s were held around the world, even in places where resources were limited. A landmark example of just how international conventions have become was the incredible 1958 Divine Will International Assembly in New York City, which was attended by more than 250,000 people from 123 lands. This was the largest international convention ever held in one city, filling Yankee Stadium and just 4 blocks away, the Polo Grounds.
The greatest assembly of true Christians ever held is opening this day. We are certain that Jehovah is with us and that we are here by divine will.
But what unified God's people at conventions like this one wasn't simply gathering together in large numbers. It was the spiritual content, riveting talks, practical symposiums, new releases, and starting in the 1960s, Bible dramas on stage in full costume. Those spiritual gifts, along with the joy of meeting new friends and uniting with old ones, have made assembling together a true blessing.
Something feels like it's missing. I wonder what it could be. Oh, I know. The 1970s and the convention to where they said, stay alive till 75. You forgot that one. That one's kind of important.
But it hasn't always been easy. In the country of Georgia, where witnesses had faced severe opposition, plans were set to hold the 2006 Deliverance at Hand District Convention in the Tbilisi Philharmonic Concert Hall. But the hall management canceled the contract just 1 week before the convention. With just days before the opening session, an army of determined brothers and sisters turned 2 plots of farmland into a convention site, harvesting the potatoes planted on the property, building a stage and benches for seating, and installing sound equipment. When it was time for the first session, everything was ready, and more than 17,000 attended either on site or by telephone tie-in. Not only did the convention come off without a hitch, but the attendees were overwhelmed with another unexpected blessing, the New World Translation in Georgian, unifying them even further with their brothers and sisters around the world. In modern times like these, special and international conventions have been held in far-flung places around the world. And when it was impossible to meet in person, we've even met online. From Poland to Korea, from Australia to South Africa, conventions were, and still are, joyful spiritual occasions for all of God's people. They motivate and encourage us, unite us as brothers and sisters, and most importantly, draw us closer to Jehovah.
When we gather as a united spiritual family, it's a shout of praise to Jehovah. It's also powerful evidence that we are a loving brotherhood. Of course, we have to promote unity every day, especially when someone has hurt our feelings and our patience is tested. But with Jehovah's help, we can become friends again, which is the appealing title of our new music video. Before we watch it, we want to show you a feature that may help you benefit more from the broadcast. Subtitles are available in a number of languages. If a video has subtitles for your language, you'll see this icon at the bottom of your screen. Click the icon to turn subtitles on and off.
First they invented Zoom, and now they've invented subtitles. What will they think of next?
We're trying hard to help others find friends eternally.
Now, please enjoy the music video, Friends Again.
Yay, music video. Skip.
Our program has focused on the beautiful quality of patience. We learned to be patient with the way others handle situations. We saw how Jehovah is patient with us as we free ourselves from destructive habits, and how our patience and love reassures others too. For this month's video postcard, we traveled to Guatemala in Central America.
Oh, a video postcard. Skip.
From the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses, this is JW Broadcasting.
And so concludes the November broadcast for JW Broadcasting. I'd like to thank you for watching this video and for liking and subscribing, ringing the bell for notification, all that jazz. I hope that you are doing well, and I will catch you next time. If there's anything that you might want me to talk about or cover, please let me know in the comments. Yeah, I could always use good ideas, and I would like to talk about things that people are interested in hearing about. So with that, I bid you adieu and have a good evening. Or, okay, bye. All we need is just a little patience. Ooh, yeah. Thanks for hanging out at the end of the video. I appreciate you watching and commenting, all that stuff. And the support that I've gotten so far, I really do appreciate that a lot. So I wanted to say thank you. So if you are able to comment in this video, yes, please. Then I will randomly pick a person who does comment that, please like the video and stuff, to win this shirt. So you can see it's the Apostate Coalition mantra. We're here to help. I don't know if mantra is the right word, but yeah. So I just wanted to say thank you to Size Large. It's what I've got. I originally wanted to make some stuff for myself, like this hat that I wear all the time. And the only way I can really have that done is to have a store so that I can buy things myself. But of course, anybody wants to buy some stuff, I'm not objecting to that at all. But in any case, yeah, so I will send the winner this shirt. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Anyway, race into 1,000 and to infinity and beyond. Okay, catch you later. Thanks. Bye.